The name Ponderosa might trigger some nostalgic feelings from your younger years, as it served as a go-to spot for many families seeking an economical steak meal. Unlike those upscale steakhouses featuring formal settings where patrons arrived dressed to the nines for premium beef cuts, Ponderosa thrived by offering something completely different. Children were drawn to its Wild West cowboy aesthetic, lively ambience, and complimentary ice cream bar, while parents appreciated the extensive buffet offerings and budget-friendly pricing. The prices were remarkably low, just a couple of dollars for a complete steak dinner, making it an attractive choice for families on tight budgets who still wanted an enjoyable, classic restaurant outing. I'm curious if you've dined there with your loved ones, and I suspect many of you have, given that nearly 750 Ponderosa locations once operated across America, particularly throughout the Midwest. From the 1970s through the 1990s, they held the distinction of being America's largest steakhouse chain. Unfortunately, their fortunes have steadily worsened since then. Their parent corporation declared bankruptcy in 2008, with court filings showing assets between $1 to $10 million against liabilities of $100 to $500 million. A massive range, but an alarming imbalance. The downward trajectory has persisted. While I can't verify the precise number of remaining locations, they've shuttered the vast majority, and I estimate perhaps only single-digit numbers survive today, roughly 1 to 2% of their peak size. This represents a dramatic collapse. So let's explore how one of America's most cherished restaurant chains fell from grace. The beginning, 1963. In 1963, NBC's Western-themed series Bonanza dominated television ratings. Dan Blocker, who portrayed Eric Haas Cartwright on the show, launched a Western-style steakhouse bearing the show's name. The restaurant benefited immediately from brand recognition, celebrity endorsement, and affordable pricing, quickly expanding into a small chain. Just 2 years later, in 1965, three entrepreneurs Dan Lasser, Norm Weiss, and Charles Kleps established a competing steakhouse chain called Ponderosa, clearly inspired by Bonanza's success. They replicated the low-cost model by maintaining minimal staff and serving more economical meat grades. They adopted the family-friendly Western aesthetic, and even chose a name deeply connected to the television series. The opening sequence featured a map marking the Ponderosa Ranch where the show's family resided. NBC eventually rebroadcast episodes under the Ponderosa title, and briefly aired a 2001 prequel series with the same name. Creating a rival restaurant with such similar branding naturally sparked competition between them. Amusingly, Ponderosa initially failed to secure their trademark, allowing Bonanza restaurants to claim it first. However, Bonanza had also neglected to protect their own trademark, so Ponderosa seized it in response. Eventually, they simply exchanged trademarks with each other. Throughout the following decade, Ponderosa pursued aggressive franchise expansion, possibly overextending by financing numerous new sites. By the late 1970s, they'd become America's dominant steakhouse, with over $300 million in system-wide revenue from more than 500 locations. The turbulent 1980s. The 1980s brought significant challenges. Understanding Ponderosa's ownership transitions is important, as each shaped the business differently. The original founders of those three businessmen maintained control initially, though Lasser departed and the company went public, creating some early structural changes. Nothing dramatic occurred until the 1980s, when Ponderosa began showing distress signals. Multiple factors contributed to their struggles. Restaurants weren't being updated or modernized as needed, making everything feel dated and worn. American dietary preferences were shifting towards seemingly healthier proteins like poultry and seafood, potentially making a steak-focused establishment less appealing. Though they offered other items, consumers viewed them primarily as a steakhouse. Economic downturns and manufacturing sector changes created elevated unemployment throughout the Midwest, their primary market. Color television's widespread adoption diminished interest in TV westerns, arguably making their cowboy theme feel antiquated. Increased competition from other budget steakhouses, particularly Sizzler, was fragmenting the market and stealing customers. Whatever the causes, declining profits left the company vulnerable to acquisition attempts. The decade opened in 1980 with a major takeover bid that cost Ponderosa significant money to defend against while buying back shares. Years later, Bonanza Restaurants attempted acquiring them with a $155 million proposal, which they again rejected at considerable expense. Ponderosa then developed a comprehensive recovery strategy involving new leadership, capital reinvestment, and hundreds of new southern locations. These plans were derailed when Asher Edelman successfully acquired the company through what essentially amounted to a hostile leveraged buyout, burdening Ponderosa with over $200 million in new debt. This hardly seemed beneficial, and Edelman apparently agreed, quickly selling to an unlikely purchaser, Metromedia. Quick favor before we dive deeper: if you're enjoying the deep dive into the company's documentary, please like and subscribe. The Metromedia era. Metromedia's owner, John Kluge, had recently privatized his media corporation before selling major assets, including 6 television stations, to Rupert Murdoch, who used them to establish the Fox TV network. According to Forbes, these transactions made Kluge America's wealthiest person, a position he maintained for 3 years before Bill Gates surpassed him. With newfound time and capital, he sought new business ventures, surprisingly settling on affordable steakhouses. He began by purchasing Ponderosa, but recognizing he was entering unfamiliar territory on a grand scale, he soon acquired the company controlling steak and ale and Bennigan's, and notably, Bonanza itself. The irony was striking: Bonanza had recently attempted buying Ponderosa, but now Ponderosa effectively controlled Bonanza, giving franchisees opportunities to convert Bonanza locations to the larger, more recognizable Ponderosa brand. The situation seemed promising, America's richest individuals showing special interest in these steakhouses, consolidating them, and investing in their prosperity. Unfortunately, it provided little help. The issues hampering them during the 1980s continued and intensified into the 1990s. Sizzler expanded their buffet and claimed the title of America's largest steakhouse chain, ending Ponderosa's 20-year reign. The constant ownership changes, leadership turnover, and strategic shifts proved counterproductive and frustrated franchisees who had to continually adapt to new directives. Kluge reportedly invested over $1 billion in these steakhouses without seeing returns, simply losing money. Everything continued deteriorating, and when the 2008 recession hit, bankruptcy became inevitable. The collapse, 2008 and beyond. In July 2008, the Steak and Ale and Bennigan's segment filed for bankruptcy in what was reported as among the largest restaurant industry bankruptcies ever. 3 months later, the budget steakhouse division Ponderosa and Bonanza also filed for bankruptcy. Other major buffet chains followed suit that same year, marking difficult times for buffets and steakhouses generally. The following year, they emerged from bankruptcy as Homestyle Dining LLC with approximately 200 Ponderosa locations and 50 Bonanzas remaining. The company president stated optimistically that the future looked bright for the brands. However, looking back respectfully, I must disagree. Over the subsequent 8 years, they gradually closed roughly half those restaurants without meaningful recovery signs. In 2017, ownership transferred one final time when Fat Brands acquired them for $10.5 million. Fat Brands, best known for owning Fatburger, was attempting to expand their portfolio with additional concepts. That $10 million price tag seems embarrassingly modest for what were once 2 of America's largest restaurant chains. Upon acquisition, they announced plans to develop a smaller-scale, fast-casual Ponderosa version, though I've seen no evidence this materialized. They've continued closing additional restaurants, leaving very few remaining. Midwest residents might still have one within reasonable distance, but it's improbable, and their longevity remains uncertain. Conclusion. Honestly, the story just becomes increasingly disheartening. Ponderosa has become a melancholy tale, a once-treasured brand that, for various reasons, has gradually disappeared from American culture. I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you remember visiting Ponderosa Steakhouse? Under what circumstances as a child, as a parent, with family, or alone? I'd wager it was quite some time ago, because we're reaching a point where age directly correlates with likelihood of having Ponderosa memories. What did you enjoy or dislike about the experience? Do you miss it? Would you still frequent it regularly if possible? Additionally, do my explanations for the decline resonate with you? Or do you believe other factors played roles I overlooked? Do you see any realistic possibility of Ponderosa rebuilding? Personally, I'd say it's extremely improbable without major developments. But perhaps that's acceptable. Not everything is meant to endure permanently, and Ponderosa might simply represent a concept better suited to a different era. Share any other thoughts about Ponderosa, Bonanza, the restaurant or television show, or any other brands mentioned here. I'd appreciate hearing your perspectives. Thank you for your time.